My welcome, dear students. Today we talk with you about the next topic. It calls the rights and obligations of healthcare professionals. So today we'll talk about the basis of rights and obligations. We'll talk about the aim of it and also about the certain rights and certain obligations. So let's begin from the first position, from the basis. And first we should talk about is the theoretical part. That's the really reason of the connection between law and medical work is in the relations between people. You should understand that among two people which work in very close positions, there are a lot of situations when some questions may be too personal or too intimate to tell it to other people. So the information about one person should be protected from others and so on. So, to many medical petitioners, the law seems a real treat. Really, it's very understandable because when you want to work as a usual medical, when you your main aim is to help people, doesn't matter how should you do it, you should understand that in those situations there are a lot of different little things, legal things, which can stop you on some steps. But the law, as practiced by lawyers who are its professional operators, may easily be seen as a threat to clinical independence and autonomy. It therefore comes to be seen as an undesirable activity which should keep its own province and leave the professionals alone. But also, law can protect medical workers in the situations when it seems that they're wrong, but from the legal side, they're right. So it's not surprising, therefore, that the law appears directly in the guise of the advancing threat. Ironically and disturbingly, this threat appears to increase in direct proportions to advance in techniques and technology and in corresponding patient care. As the training of medical professionals makes increasingly demand on time, both of those trained and those who receive such training, a corresponding decrease may occur in the provision of opportunities to study aspects of practice or future practice other than those which are pure clinical. A considerable effort therefore needs to be made, and in a number of schools it's being made to incorporate a medical education and training certain broader aspects of practice aimed at producing more round and better informed practitioners. This includes primary social and philosophical aspects of the practitioner's role. What is frequently forgotten by anesthetics is that the broadest and in many sense the most important contextual aspects to medical practice consist of the legal parameters of the great responsibility which are excited. The legal context of the exercise of responsibilities and duties, both limits and enables. This information is a vital clue in answering whether or not the law is or it's not seeking the interfere with professionals and clinical responsibility. So in the case when we talk about the law limits, because it says that certain things may not be done or will not be tolerated, it does this by both the criminal law and the civil law. The criminal law consists of rules in imposing penalties, while the civil law contains of principles of compensations. So, the concept of fault are common to both aspects, although they work differently. On the other hand, the law enables in setting down limitations and restrictions on what is to be permitted or tolerated. The law is creating a broad framework and a framework alone. Once the broad parameters or duty and responsibilities are set down either by statute or regulation, or more usual by the common law, and law leaves well done. Where the law stops, professional and clinical judgment and responsibility begins. Thus, the law affecting the exercise of professional responsibility and judgment is a paramount factor in a medical practice. Its particular stipulation and prohibits may change from time to time, not least in response to advance or change in clinical practice itself, but its prohibiting and enabling force is permanent. So, as you see, a lot of situations are regulated by laws. A lot of questions, many theoretical questions, which are not connected to the medical practice and medical work, are close to it and should be regulated. Law regulates not just, of course, the medical work, it regulates all the spheres of living. So in this case, we see that it's just one part of law which regulates the certain positions of medical workers, also medical organizations, medical system and its sphere by itself. In healthcare workers are the persons who is working in a health related department like clinics, pharmacies, hospitals. Not only the doctors, nurses, and frontline workers are the healthcare workers, but so many people are working at the back and not in direct contact with the patient. Of course, in this case, also their work is important, but it just have the other side of regulation and the other area of their work. The main duty of the healthcare workers is to take care of patients and maintain the records of their treatment-related medicine and tests. It is the ethical and the legal responsibility of the workers to take care of patients with good care. Because of they ignore their responsibilities and do not fulfill them accurately, then it may cause problems for the patient and they suffer a lot. Health workers must have a polite attitude towards patients and show ethics. I hope that all of you understand that in working with people who are suffering, who are sick, who have diseases, who have problems with their health, of course, already they're in a very unpleasant condition, and their mental health can be rather bad because of their problems with health. So there are also an ethical regulation of the side of the work side of medical workers, because in this situation, as the people who can help, who have possibility to help and who do everything for saving other people, of course, their attitude and their behavior should be very polite, should be very understanding. I mean that workers should understand the problems of their patients. They should be very intelligent, and of course, they should understand also that in some cases, patients in certain situations can be illogical and sometimes rude, but of course we can't say that all the medicals should live with it. And for example, also law protects the way where the patients are rude with the doctors, and when they say that they are wrong, but the doctor made everything he could for the saving of the patient, and so on. So you see here are a lot of situations when law works on both sides. Healthcare workers are comprises of many occupations and professions. Those are providing the many types of services related to human health. Nurses, pathologists, physician assistant, physician therapist, also behavior therapists, dentists, medical laboratory scientists, pharmacists, social workers, and occupational therapists are the health care workers. These workers are working in healthcare centers, hospitals, and clinics. Many of them are also in their academic training, and a few of them working privately to promote medical facilities to the people. In many of the countries, a large number of healthcare workers work outside. Other managers, assistants, and technologists are also considered as the main part of the healthcare work team. When a patient comes to a doctor, it is his or her duty, doctors, to listen to the problem of the patient carefully and examine them keenly. So, of course, we all understand, and lawyers also understand, that the doctor is also a human with his problems, with his attitude to something, with his understanding of the situation, with his families, and so on. But the same as other professionals, they work with people and in their work, so they should do it in the best way of their possibilities. To achieve the goals of the healthcare workers community, there are some things on which their career depends. At the top of the thing is education, of course the education, because without the special knowledge, a doctor can be a good specialist and can help people in that area which he chooses. If they have good education, if doctors have good education, then they can examine the patient problem very carefully and find the reason of his problem. The second part is training, and it's the key to their career, because more than education, a person learns from the life experience. A good trainer trains the students in a good way. So in this way, you see that of course the problems, of course the way of regulating, the way of the work, the way of and the places of work of the people are very important, but one of the main importance is the way of self-education of the certain student. So let's go to the next part and we'll talk about the characteristics of the healthcare. So the characteristics of healthcare is those which are shown you on the screen. It's not all of them, but it's the main. And as you see, there are some specific of them in this table. First of all, the doctors must have ethical and polite behavior. The second, they have the patients to listen to patients' problems carefully. The third one, a good healthcare worker is always ready to serve society. The fourth one, he or she has a good education training with a real certification. The fifth one, they must be stable emotionally, have a strong heart, and be flexible. The sixth one, and most important, a good healthcare workers must know how to solve the problem and always be ready for the emergency. So as you see, these are the basic rules and the basic characteristics of healthcare workers, which should be in any of them. Of course, the good behavior, the stable emotion, the good education, being careful with patients, and be ready to help the patient and the society. Also, understanding of the problem and way of solving this problem. So, in the way a person want to be a good specialist, he should make the level of these characteristics more and more every time and every year. So, if we talk about the role of community health care workers, we should make a point on some of the some of the services are provided by the healthcare workers and their communities. They are reducing the patient social isolation, appropriately education the healthcare workers about the needs of patients. They educate them about the topic they are related to physical activity and the prevention of chronic diseases. This community creates a connection between the healthcare providers and the vulnerable population. It helps the patient to search a social service system and the healthcare centers. They save the data of stakeholders and continuously update them related to new policies and information programs. The healthcare workers community provides reference, informing, counseling, confidence to face the health issues. So, in the conclusion, we can see here that healthcare workers have a very tough job. They have to stay attentive, polite all the time. A little ignorance from their sides may become a reason for patient suffer and may become the matter of patient life and death. A medical translators also working, those interpreter the doctor's message to patient. Their job is also not easy. As a healthcare worker, a person must have a good communication skills, strong emotions, and flexibility. So as you see, being a doctor, of course, it's very hard, but the aim of this work is so great that most of people have a possibility to be a very important persons in the society for helping other people, for saving good people, for helping all the to help with all the needed situations, and of course to save lives and make a life of other persons, of patients, much better. So, talking about the next position, we should say about the liability of the patients and of the health workers, medical personnel. And the first thing we will talk about is about the legislation, of course. The current legislation on healthcare reform in medical malpractice domain stipulates that medical staff can be held accountable in the following forms. The discretionary liability, administrative liability, disciplinary disciplinary liability, administrative liability, civil liability, and criminal liability. So here are the four liability forms which can be used to solve the problem. It's the next one, which can be used to punish those medical workers who are not good in their work or who make mistakes. So each form of legal liability presents in features, aspects that are found mainly in the procedure rules. However, the differences between the various legal forms of liability are not met only in the procedure rules, but also in their effects and consequences. It is necessary to know that the procedure, for disciplinary responsibility, administrative liability, civil liability, or criminal liability, is rather lot. In addition to the differentiation determined by the consequences that may arise from the different forms of legal liability, it is important to know the competent authorities to investigate a case further and the solution which various public institutions can take regarding the medical staff. So, depending on the type of legal liability, authorities have a special authorities. If the disciplinary committee is encountered at the special organization, or it can be, for example, college, some special college of medical workers, or for example can be a minister or some other committees. There are a lot of them. So it may not intervene in cases before the monitoring and competence for malpractice cases committee. The latter two committees cannot intervene directly in the legal assessments of civil or criminal cases, as no criminal investigation authorities can intervene in strictly civilian cases. Therefore, the importance of knowing the competent institution is imperative. So, the medical personnel can be held available in those liabilities, in those forms of liabilities. So, the first one is disciplinary. So, it's the procedure that takes place before the special regulation of, for example, college of physicians or some other organization in different countries, can be called in other ways, and that involves the analysis of a complaint regarding a medical malpractice by the special committee set up for this by the college or by the ministry or by the union of medicals or some others. So you see there are a lot of different names of them. So the next one is administrative, is the procedure that is conducted by analyzing a medical malpractice complaint by the monitoring a professional committee by malpractice cases established in the public health authorities of each country in the certain city or in the whole country. So I'm sorry, I used Bucharest here as like an example, but for example it can be in Bucharest they have the special their committee, but if talk about other, we can talk about actual state regulation. So the next one is civil. It's a procedure that involves advancing a civil action based on the principles of misdemeanor liability to a court. And the last one, criminal, it's the procedure that involves lodging a criminal complaint against the standards governed by the criminal code offense written to the person concerned or in connection with the service. So, every form of liability has a specific effect, as we're going to show below. For the existence of liability, the following conditions should be cumulatively met and proved. The existence of an illicit act, the existence of damage, the existence of guilt, and the existence of cause effect report between the illicit and the damage. Let's talk more context about each of them. Talking about the disciplinary form, we should talk about the situations when the law stipulates that the doctor is liable for the disciplinary action for non-compliance with law and regulations of the medical profession, medical deontology code, ethical codes, the rule of good professional practice, and for any acts committed in connection with the profession that are likely to harm the honor and the prestige of the profession. In the cases when medical malpractice, since the medical malpractice is the professional error committee in the exercise of the medical pharmaceutical domain that produces damage to a patient. So the complaint against a doctor is forwarded to the college he is passed, and if the doctor is connational of a member of a state of European Union or of the European Economical Area state or the Swiss Confederation or others, the complaint is filed with the college within the doctor career is out his activity. So a disciplinary board is organized and functions within each territorial area, being independent from the college leadership, and they composed of several members who analyzes the offenses committed by doctors enrolled in the territory college. So you see, in these cases, there are special organizations which control all the which control and make the decision about the actions of every doctor. After the investigation of the case, the disciplinary commission issues a decision that is communicated to the sanctioned doctor, the person who made the complaint, the Ministry of Health, for example, the executive, and the person whom to the sanctioned doctor has an employment contract with. Within several days, usually it's about 14-15 days, from the communication of the decision, the sanctioned person, the person who made the complaint, the Minister of Health may challenge the decision of the disciplinary commission. Within 15 days from notification, the sanctioned doctor may appeal against the decision of the Superior Commission in cassation to the administrative department of the court in whose jurisdiction he operates against the decision that the doctor was not sanctioned, being no form to appeal. So you see, a doctor has a possibility to prove that he was right in that position, even in the case when disciplinary commission says that he was wrong. But of course, in this situation, he had to prove a lot of positions and show that his or her actions was totally legal. So note that the disciplinary action can be initiated within 6 months from the date of the deed or from the date of the knowledge of harmful consequences were suffered, and this disciplinary procedure does not preclude civil, criminal, or administrative procedure. So regarding the sanction against the doctor, they may be first reprimanded. He can be reprimanded. He can be warned. He can be censured. He or she can have a fine. Also could be prohibited to practice certain medical activities or medical activities or medicine for a period of 1 month or from 1 month to a year, or in some countries can be more. Withdraw a membership, and that's all. Also, the sanctions from the 1st till the 4th shall be radiated within 6 months from the date of the execution, and the one referred to the 5th and the 6th within 1 year after the expiration of the ban. In the case of the sanction provided off to the last, so withdraw with the membership, the doctor can make a new application to regain membership after the expiration established by the final judgment or after 2 years from the date of sanction by the disciplinary committee. It should be noted that these disciplinary commissions could not order about the indemnification, which means that their jurisdiction is limited and specialized. So you see, in a case of disciplinary liability, we talk about those situations when doctors have problems with some actions. They didn't cause bad health to a patient, or it didn't make a person dead, but there were some actions which can be good and can be respectful for the doctors. So, talking to the next one, the administrative liability, we should say that this administrative liability leading to disciplinary administrative penalties for the healthcare provision. So it's very close one to another, but of course there are some differences. Monitoring the professional committee for malpractice cases is a commission in the public health authorities of every country, yes, and the main activity is the determination of malpractice cases in solution that were addressed before it. So the committee may not be notified by the person or were appropriated legal representative who is considered a victim of an act of malpractice committed in the exercise of an activity of prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of the successors of the diseased persons as a result of an act of malpractice attributable to activities of prevention, diagnosis, and treatment. So, subsequent to the present application to the monitoring committee shall approve and shall appoint by drawing lots from the national list of experts, a group of experts or an expert who has at least the same degree of professional and teaching skills as the person claimed, according to the complexity of the case, who will make a report on this case. Within 30 days, the expert John will complete a report on the case and submit it to the commission, and the committee shall take a decision on the case within 3 months for the date of the person's application. So you see, in this situation we talk about the special malpractice and special regulation of this work of medicals when there are much bigger problems and situations before the just illegal behavior. So this action should not be noted in the entire procedure for the determination of malpractice cases until the court is sized is confidential. Therefore, all the data related to the parties, the medical expert calls, the examination stage are covered by the confidential principles. The impossibility of communication and changing the information about this case to third parties appears. In the situation of malpractice, the court may order the person responsible to pay damage, which means to the special commission or to the other commissions cannot rule on the demand side, but only on the existence or otherwise of malpractice cases. Therefore, there is special limited competence as in the case of disciplinary committees. However, compensation may be determined amicably if there is a clear civil liability of the injured one, so for example by medical personnel, but if the injured one, also if you talk about medical personnel, the insurer and the injured person do not agree on the fault of the insured, yes, and the amount and methods of payments of the damage caused by the act of malpractice, compensation shall be determined by the court. So you see, in this situation there are a lot of regulation which causes to the question of the cause to the injury to some patients or medical personnel by the medical workers, and it's mostly the relation between the organization and the patient. So in this case there are much more problems with the special norms that regulates the work of the medical organizations. So let's go to the next one, is civil liability form, whose essentials are based on the principles of misdemeanor liability, requires proof by the next mandatory elements: guilt, fault, injury, and causal link between the fault and the injury. If there is one element missing, then there is no possibility to using a decree. On the way to prove the existence of the 4 elements, the court has to analyze the proofs. They could be witnesses, documents, questioning, videos or audios also, files, I mean, the expertise and so on. So to issue if there is or there is not a medical malpractice case. So currently there is no special procedure regarding for judging the cases regarding medical malpractice. There is a usual procedure of the civil regulation, and it can be used in most of the courts. Therefore, the proceedings before the court, which can be also the judicatory. If, for example, the application has a value of, in Russian, I mean, less than 100,000 rubles, or we go to we go to the peace courts, and we go to the common courts in a case when this the application has more value. First of all, should be found the area of the responsibility of the radiance of the judiciary in those courts, from where the act was committed to the damage occurred in the common one. So the misdemeanor liability is based on the rules governed by the civil code. This is one who causes injury to another by an unlawful act committed with the guilt of obliged to repair the author responsibility to the slightest injury fault. So it means that in a case when one person causes another with his acts or not acts, in this case, and the person was injured, for example, there was a problem because of the situation. So in this case, the person can ask a judge to make a payment for this situation. So regarding the guilt, it states at the state that is an assessing guilt that will take according to the circumstances in which the damage was done, and were appropriated that the injury was caused by the professional in the business operation, the person being responsible only for his deeds committed intentionally or negligently. Also, relative to the wrongful act is fault. The legal norms consider such a deal the situation that violates public orders, morals, or laws, and the damage borne when it affects the rights or interests of another. In the case when we see that civil law regulates the democratical and equal rights, we can see a lot of possibilities to wrongful acts, to negligence. When we talk about even the situation when the norms of the working can be broken. Ethical norms also can be broken, or we talk about the situation of bad education, any cases, a lot of them. So in this type of civil causes, the court will issue a decree. The court decision ruling may be appealed to the superior court, and the court can order regarding the payment of damage and additional penalties such as withdrawal of membership also. In usual cases, in most of the cases, there are situations when the harm which was made to one person is also the possibility to use discipline liability for this case also. So, and the last one, the criminal liability. So regarding to the criminal liability, the condition laid down by the criminal code relating to one offense or more have to be regarded. Regarding the physician injury, for example, it is necessary to have an act which causes disability, injuries or damage of the health of the person who needed the curing more than 90 days of medical treatment. Ethics and permanent injury, aborting or endangering a person's life. Each offense presents specific elements of the offense is missing. Again, please. Each offense presents specific elements that must be followed exactly as they are regulated. Just as in the case of civil liability, when an element of the offense is missing, then the presumed guilty can be held legally accountable. So, although the proofs are in the principle similar in civil and criminal proceedings, so also documents, witnesses, videos, audios, hearings, expertises, and so on, there is a difference regarding the step that must be followed in dealing with proofs. So if we talk about just the payment in the civil regulation, civil liability, in the case of criminal liability, we talk about the punishment, two of different positions. The procedure from criminal responsibility of the medical staff requires filing a criminal complaint that will be submitted to the agencies usually investigating or prosecuting. Following the criminal complaint filed, the investigation, that prosecution stage will begin. A stage that virtually requires gathering evidences to establish the existence or non-existence of the offense. Therefore, the parts are heard, all the necessary documents are gathered, and expertise is provided, or other evidence necessary of the situation when they are useful for the research. So in the stage we talk about the criminal liability, we talk about the special procedure of criminal offense, of the guilty, of the making decisions by the criminal workers, and also the situation when there is a crime in the special criminal code which regulates it. So, and also the special system which regulates the question of different parties, subject side, object side, which should be in the crime to punish the person. So in conclusion, talking about all of the situations, by the way, also the example, for example, sorry, the example for the criminal offense is the situation with aborting, situation with critical negligence or illegal, with the actions which were made in the consequences when the doctor could help and was on the work but didn't do it, in the cases, for example, of special actions of those people, euthanasia, for example, in some countries it's criminal liability and it's a crime, like a murder, or we can talk about some other situations. For example, in some countries surrogacy is also a crime, and so on. So in conclusion, it should be noted that the choice of following process of administrative, civil, or criminal form, each with its specific effect, does not block the possibility of simultaneously start one or more procedures. For example, if an application is initiated to the disciplinary liability in front of the special committee, it does not mean that a civil court action or a criminal complaint cannot be started against the medical personnel considered guilty. So, as I said already, they can be in parallel, some of them. Moreover, starting civil or administrative procedure shall not preclude the pursuit of criminal liability by lodging a criminal complaint. However, there are exceptions to those rules due to the criminal offense research that can hold back to a civil action, in the sense that a civil action would be suspended until the trial regarding a criminal investigation is judged, and if a court has already ruled on some aspect of the malpractice case, another court can judge the same issue. So you see, the level of the damage, the special actions, the aim of the medical worker. All of these positions are important to solve what liability the person will have in the case of this situation. So let's go to the more pleasant position. It's healthcare worker rights, and in this case I gave you a list of rights. Of course, it's not all the rights, it's just the rights which is codified by the Geneva Convention and on the Constitution of the United States of America. They're one of the most common, but also in text variant I'll add you a special table which will show other and more wide rights of healthcare workers. So all healthcare workers have basic individual rights, including the civil, constitutional, statutory rights which is given to him by its state. Each person has the special rights which are codified in international conventions and in other international documents which regulates the rights of people all over the world. So we talk not just about the position when the doctor or medical worker is a special person, individual. We talk about the situation when he is the equal individual with other persons all over the world. So right to live, right to be healthy, right to the name, right to choose the place of living, right to education, and some other rights from this basic list are on the basic position and always used to medical workers, not depending on their medical or not medical position. If we talk about the position about the medical workers, we should talk about the special rights of them. First of all, and one of the main, is that healthcare workers have the right to considerate and respectful behavior from the patients for whom they care, and to be free from harassment, abuse, attack, and verbal and mental abuse. You see, in this case, we talk about special right from the certain group of people, from the patients. If we talk about just person from the street, any person, it will be the basic right of a person. In this case, we talk about the special healthcare workers' rights. So the next one is that healthcare workers have the right to considerate and respectful behavior from their superior and to be free from harassment, abuse, attack, and verbal and mental abuse. So you see here we're also talk about the other side, so the labor side of the problem. The next one, that healthcare workers have the right to protect themselves from physician attack. It means that, of course, a doctor will not stand like a statue and waiting for the attack. He can protect himself because, of course, the life of a doctor is also a big treasure and it should be protected. In a case there will be other, for example, police officers, which have special possibilities to protect them. So also they have right to register a complaint about the patient and to pursue that complaint through the hospital system or in a court of law without risk for his employment. Of course, every work has different sides. I mean, especially working medical work. From one side, there are medicals, patients of medicals, which can't be always polite and quiet persons. From other side, there are a system, medical system, which not always totally clean and legal, and a medical worker as the legal and honest person can also be in a case of this legal circle. So also healthcare workers should not be required to put their lives, their physical health or the health of their families at risk. Just in a cases they do it by their own ideas and their own wills. Healthcare workers have to have the right to reasonable access to the tools needed to perform the duties of their position. So, of course, the medicals should use all the possibilities and the medical organization should give it to them. Healthcare workers have the right to sufficient personal time during the work shift to keep hydrated and nourishing as needed. So, as you know, the work of medicals are very hard, and there is special, in most of countries, there is special regulation of work of medicals and the places for the rest, the time for the rest, the special circumstances of the payments, special regulation of the vacations and so on. So for medical, they were created special regulation in some cases. So you see, in this case, of course, we talk much less about the worker rights, but I think that most of you know those rights which is possible for workers, and you will always find those rights in the deals with workplaces and in international conventions. So the regulation of medical workers, the regulation of their rest and their rights is one of the most important and also legally regulated positions in the legislation. So as I told you at the beginning, the law for healthcare workers is not just the problem, it's also the help sometimes. So on this position we will finish our lecture and we'll talk more concrete about all of the liabilities and rights of healthcare workers on our practice lessons. Goodbye. Have a good day.